There is a story in the Bible you have known since you were a child. Blood in the river, frogs in the streets, a darkness so thick you could feel it. You have seen it in paintings. You have heard it read aloud. You think you already know it. But almost everyone misses the war being fought underneath it. Because this was never really about frogs or insects or a run of terrible weather. And it was never only a contest between one stubborn king and one old man with a staff. 10 times, a hand came down on the most powerful empire on earth. And 10 times, it struck a target you cannot see in any of the paintings. It struck their gods. This is the story of the 10 plagues of Egypt. And it is the story of the day the god of a nation of slaves went to war with the gods of the greatest empire in the world. The river had a god. The sun had a god. The frogs, the cattle, the very air had gods. And one by one, the God of Israel was about to call each of them out into the open. Here is what I promise you. By the end, you will never again read these 10 plagues as 10 random miracles. You will see them for what they truly are. 10 precise strikes aimed with terrifying accuracy in a single deliberate campaign. So let's begin. To understand the plagues, you first have to understand Egypt. In the ancient world, Egypt was not merely powerful. It was the superpower. Older than almost anything, richer than anywhere, and utterly certain of itself. And at the center of that certainty stood 2 things: the river and the king. The river was the Nile. Without it, Egypt was only desert. With it, Egypt fed the world. So they worshipped it. They gave the Nile a god named Hapi, and they called its yearly flood the gift of the gods. To an Egyptian, the river was not just water. It was divine, and it was untouchable. And the king was Pharaoh. To Egypt, he was not just a ruler. He was a god in human form, the son of the sun, the living bridge between heaven and earth. Behind him stood a crowded heaven, a god for the sun, a goddess for childbirth, gods for the cattle, the crops, the storm, and the dead. The Egyptians did not believe in one power over the world. They believed in 1,000, and they thought they had every one of them on their side. Into that certainty walked 2 brothers. Moses, 80 years old, a shepherd, a fugitive, slow of speech, holding nothing but a wooden staff, and Aaron, his older brother, who would be his voice. They came with a message that must have sounded absurd inside Pharaoh's court. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may serve me." And Pharaoh answered with the question that framed the entire war. "Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." That is the whole conflict in a single sentence. Pharaoh does not know this God. The 10 plagues are the answer to his question. Every one of them says the same thing. Now you will know. But before it begins, God tells Moses something strange and unsettling. He says, "I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will not let the people go." It is one of the hardest ideas in the whole account, and the text tells it with great care. Again and again in the early plagues, we read that Pharaoh hardened his own heart. He chose his pride. He shut his own door. Only later does the text say that God hardened it, as if the God who had been patient finally handed Pharaoh over to the very stubbornness he kept choosing. A man can harden himself against the light so long that in the end, the light itself begins to blind him. So the stage is set. The king who believes he is a god against the god the king claims not to know. 10 rounds. Let the war begin. The first blow lands at dawn, at the water's edge. Pharaoh goes down to the Nile, perhaps to honor it, perhaps to bathe in its sacred water. And Moses is waiting for him on the bank, with Aaron and the staff. The demand comes once more, "Let my people go." And once more, Pharaoh refuses. So Aaron raises the staff and strikes the surface of the river, and the Nile turns to blood. not a patch of it. All of it. The river, the canals, the pools, even the water already stored in jars of wood and stone. The fish die. The great river begins to stink, and the people dig frantically along the banks for anything they can drink. Now remember who the Nile was. It was Hapi. It was the lifeblood of Egypt and one of its holiest things. And the God of Israel had just turned Egypt's holiest river into a wound. The message was impossible to miss. Your great God of the river cannot even keep his own water clean. But Pharaoh's magicians produced a small imitation of the sign, and that was enough for a proud man to look away. His heart was hard. He turned, walked back into his palace, and would not even take it to heart. 7 days pass. And then the second blow comes, and it comes out of that same defiled river. Frogs. They come up from the water in numbers no one can count. Into the houses, into the bedrooms, onto the beds, into the ovens and the kneading bowls where the bread is made. There is nowhere to step, nowhere to sleep, nowhere to cook that is not crawling with them. And here is the strike hidden inside it. The Egyptians had a goddess named Hecate, a goddess of birth and new life, and she was pictured with the head of a frog. The frog was her sign, a symbol so sacred that killing one was forbidden. The frog was one of their sacred symbols. Now their sacred symbol had become a living torment they could not escape. The magicians, foolishly, managed to bring up frogs of their own. They can add to the plague. They cannot take it away. And for the first time, Pharaoh bends. He calls for Moses and says, "Pray to your Lord to take the frogs away, and I will let the people go." Moses asks him, almost gently, when he would like the plague to end, and Pharaoh gives a strange answer: tomorrow. Even in his misery, he would rather spend one more night with the frogs than admit, tonight, who is truly Lord. The next day, the frogs die. They are gathered into great heaps, and the whole land reeks of them. But the moment there is relief, Pharaoh hardens his heart again and breaks his word. This will become the rhythm of the whole story. Pressure, then a promise. Relief, then betrayal. So the third blow comes with no warning at all. Aaron strikes the dust of the ground with the staff, and the dust of Egypt becomes gnats. Tiny biting insects, swarming over every person and every animal in the land. And now something happens that has not happened before. The magicians try to copy it. They fail. They strain and they cannot bring the gnats out of the dust. And these hardened court sorcerers turn to Pharaoh and say 4 words that break their own case. This is the finger of God. Even Egypt's own priests can see it now. This is no trick. This is a power above all their powers. Some see in this a blow against the gods of the soil itself, the dust of the earth that Egypt believed was full of divine life. The very ground had turned against them, but Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he would not listen. So the 4th blow falls. And with it, God does something new. He draws a line. Dense swarms of flies pour over Egypt, filling the palace, the houses, the ground itself. But in the land of Goshen, where the Israelites live, there is not a single fly. God says plainly, "I will make a distinction between my people and your people." This is the moment it becomes undeniable. These are not natural disasters rolling blindly across a region. They are aimed. They fall exactly where God intends and stop exactly where he says. One nation suffers. One nation in the same land is untouched. Pharaoh feels the pressure again and offers his first compromise. "Sacrifice to your God," he says, "but do it here, inside my land." Moses refuses. When the flies lift, Pharaoh hardens his heart once more, and again the people are not released. Now the blows begin to move, from misery toward ruin. The 5th is aimed at the wealth of Egypt itself. Its animals. A severe plague falls on the livestock in the fields, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks, and they die. But once again, not one animal belonging to Israel is touched. And here, the target is a whole cluster of gods. Egypt worshipped a bull god named Apis, and a mother goddess pictured with the horns of a cow. The healthiest bulls were kept in temples and honored as living gods walking the earth. Their sacred cattle, the living images of their gods, lay dead in the fields, and their gods did nothing to save them. Yet Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he still would not let the people go. The sixth blow strikes the body itself. Moses takes a handful of soot from a furnace and throws it into the air toward the sky, and it becomes boils, breaking out in sores on people and animals across all of Egypt. The Egyptians had gods and goddesses they believed could heal, could protect the body, could ward off sickness. None of them could stop this. And there is a small, devastating detail. The magicians, Pharaoh's great experts, cannot even stand in front of Moses. The men who once imitated the signs are now bent over in pain like everyone else, the boils on their own skin. The opposition has been reduced to silence. From here on, Egypt's wise men vanish from the story. And, for the first time, the text says it directly. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. The seventh blow is announced with a warning, unlike any before it. Moses tells Pharaoh that tomorrow, the worst hailstorm in the history of Egypt will fall from the sky, and then he says something merciful. Bring in your servants and your animals from the field, or the hail will kill them. And notice this. Some of Pharaoh's own officials now fear the word of the Lord and rush their people and livestock indoors. Egypt is beginning to believe. Everyone, it seems, except the king. Then the storm breaks. Hail mixed with fire, thunder rolling across the land. It flattens the crops, shatters the trees, and strikes down everything left in the open. The sky itself was thought to belong to the gods of Egypt, a goddess who arched over the world, a god of the storm. And their heaven was raining destruction on their own land. Only in Goshen, where Israel lived, did no hail fall. And now Pharaoh says words that sound, for a moment, like true repentance. This time I have sinned. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Moses knows better. He says, I can tell that you still do not fear the Lord. And he is right. The instant the thunder stops and the rain ends, Pharaoh sins again and hardens his heart. His sorrow was never about his sin. It was only ever about his pain. By now, even Egypt has had enough. And the eighth blow begins with a small rebellion inside Pharaoh's own house. His officials come to him and plead. Their words are astonishing. How long shall this man be a snare to us? Do you not yet understand that Egypt is ruined? The king's own servants can see the empire crumbling. Still, he will not yield. So an east wind blows all that day and all that night. And in the morning, the wind brings the locusts. They come in a cloud so thick it darkens the ground. They cover the face of the whole land until it cannot be seen. And they eat. Every green thing the hail had left, every leaf, every blade, every last plant in Egypt is stripped bare. Whatever gods Egypt trusted to guard its harvest and fill its storehouses were powerless. The breadbasket of the world had been eaten down to the dirt. Pharaoh confesses again in a panic. Forgive my sin, just this once. Take away this death. A west wind lifts the locusts and drives them into the sea. Not one is left, and not one lesson is kept. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the people go. 9 blows have fallen, and the 9th strikes at the highest God of all. There is no warning, no demand, no negotiation. Moses simply stretches out his hand toward the sky, and the sun goes out. A darkness falls over Egypt so total, so heavy, that the text says it could be felt. For 3 days, no one can see anyone else. No one rises from his place. The whole nation sits frozen in a blackness with no dawn. Now understand what this meant to Egypt. Their supreme god was Ra, the sun, the source of all life, the eye of heaven, the god the whole empire revolved around. Every morning when the sun rose, Egypt believed it was watching Ra defeat the darkness and be reborn. And Pharaoh himself claimed to be the son of the sun, Ra's own child on earth. So when the sun was snuffed out for 3 days, it was not just weather. It was the greatest god of Egypt, blotted from the sky. The message could not have been louder. Your highest god is nothing before me. I can turn him off like a lamp. And in the middle of that suffocating dark, one thing shone. In the land of Goshen, where the people of Israel lived, there was light. Pharaoh calls Moses one last time, and this time his patience is gone. Get out of my sight. The day you see my face again, you will die. And Moses answers, quietly, as you say, I will never see your face again, because both of them know. There is one blow left, and after it, there will be nothing left to say. 9 times, Egypt's gods had been called out and defeated. The river, the frog, the dust, the flies, the cattle, the body, the sky, the harvest, and the sun. Only one god remained, Pharaoh himself, the living god of Egypt and his royal line. And in one sentence, God tells Moses exactly what the 10th plague is really for. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. That is the key to everything you have just watched. This was a trial. And now comes the verdict. At midnight, God will pass through Egypt, and every firstborn son in the land will die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on the throne, to the firstborn of the lowest slave girl, to the firstborn of the cattle, including the son of Pharaoh himself, the next god, king, the future of Egypt's divine line. But before that night falls, God does something no other plague required. He tells his own people how to be saved. Because the God who makes distinctions will not simply assume Israel is innocent. Death is coming for every firstborn, and Israel has firstborn sons too. They too must be covered, and the way he gives them is a lamb. On the 10th day of the month, each household is to choose a lamb, a male, a year old, without blemish, without flaw. They are to keep it and watch over it until the 14th day, and at twilight, the whole assembly of Israel is to kill their lambs. Then they are to take the blood and paint it on the 2 doorposts and the top of the doorframe of every house. Inside, they roast the lamb and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And they eat it ready to move, belt fastened, sandals on their feet, staff in hand, eating in haste. Because rescue is coming, and it is coming tonight. And God gives them the promise the whole night turns on. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will fall on you to destroy you. This is the Passover. The blood on the door is a shield. Death itself will look for that mark, and where it finds it, it will pass by. Then midnight comes, and the Lord passes through the land of Egypt and strikes down every firstborn, exactly as he had said. There is not a house in Egypt without someone dead. And a great cry goes up in the night, the loudest grief the empire has ever known. But in the streets of Goshen, behind every blood-marked door, there is silence and life, and children still breathing in the dark. And Pharaoh, the God King, whose own son now lies dead, breaks at last. In the middle of the night, he summons Moses and says the words he swore he would never say. Go. Take your people, take your flocks, and go. The living God of Egypt has been forced to his knees by the God he said he did not know. And so, that very night, A nation of slaves walks out of Egypt as a free people. 600,000 men, with their families and their flocks, carrying the wealth their neighbors pressed into their hands, streaming out toward the desert and the dawn. This is the Exodus, the night the plagues had been building toward all along. Now step back and see what really happened here. 10 plagues, and not one of them was random. Each one struck a specific pillar of Egypt's confidence, and behind it, a specific god. Now, matching each plague to one exact Egyptian deity is a tradition of interpretation, not a list the Bible spells out, and scholars line them up in slightly different ways. But the heart of it is unmistakable. God said he would judge all the gods of Egypt, and one by one, that is exactly what he did. The Nile, the frog, the dust, the fly, the cattle, the healers, the sky, the harvest, the sun, and finally the throne itself. It was never chaos. It was a courtroom. One by one, the gods of Egypt were summoned, judged, and found to be nothing at all. The river god, the sun god, and even the god on the throne were exposed as powerless before the God who has no image and needs no temple. And at the very center of the verdict stands that quiet, staggering thing. Not a weapon, not an army, a lamb, an innocent life given so that the firstborn could live. Blood on a doorpost, standing between a family and death. Hold on to that picture, because the Bible never lets it go. 14 centuries later, at Passover time, a man named John looked at Jesus walking toward him and said, "Behold, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world." And the early church would say it plainly. Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. The whole of Exodus was a shadow of a greater rescue still to come. Because that is the pattern hidden in the plagues. A people who cannot free themselves, a judgment they cannot survive, and a God who parts the darkness, marks a door with blood, and leads his people out of slavery into freedom. The plagues were only the beginning of the story. They were the sound of a door opening, and they still say the same thing to you today. Now you will know the Lord.